Awesome. Well, let's get started so that we can move through this, not slowly. I'm sure you all have plenty of things that you could be doing, or whatever, eating your lunch, for instance. Thank you so much for joining us for this meeting. And I would like to just ask that we open the meeting, and we will have to do that by reading the motion. That's the first piece there on the agenda. Would somebody be willing to do that?
I can do that. This is Jessica. I move that the items on the meeting agenda constitute essential business of this task force. Meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak. And any rule conflicting with Governor's Executive Order 16 and 34 permitting electronic meetings be suspended.
I'm pretty sure that the wording of the task force was a carryover when it was pasted from.
100% was. So I will move that.
Meeting of this committee.
Yeah. Okay, great. I changed it. Can I get a second? Thank you, April. April seconded the motion to open the meeting by electronic means. Thank you, April. Susie, can you remind us of the conflict of interest disclosure for committee members?
I guess it's working in terms of nominations. I guess it's working for a nonprofit that might have a nominee on the board. I suppose that would be one. Having any relations who are on the planning council already, maybe. I'm trying to think about the conflicts for this committee. Having, I suppose, any kind of relationship that could be construed as a conflict with any of the nominees.
Okay, so if anybody has a conflict of interest, Abigail, I'll just ask that you go down the list, sort of like we did with the task force, and just say if you need to reveal any kind of conflict of interest, ask that you do that right now when Abigail calls the roll.
All right. Ingrid McIntyre.
No conflict of interest in here.
April Calvin.
I don't know, should I say conflict because I am needing to be re-voted on? I'm not sure, Susie, you advise me, please.
Yeah, I'd say that works. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, then I will need to have a conflict of interest too, because I'm being re-elected as well. Or not.
Yeah, or not.
Okay. Bill Frisk sworn.
Present, finally, no conflicts.
And Hoke.
Conflict, my wife is the current chair. Not of this committee, of the planning council. Clarify that.
Right.
And there is a depending on where we end up on the slate, there is a possibility I would have a relationship with somebody on the slate. I don't know that we're there yet. I had personally know someone who was carried over from last year on the slate. So if they end up there again.
All right, and that's everyone I see from our committee, from this committee.
Great, thank you. One of the things that I just to start out this conversation, and I mean, I kind of wish that I could see everyone's face because I think this is an important thing to talk about, and just to keep at the forefront of every committee we're on, but particularly this nominations committee, as it is, right? Like, sort of deciding what, or helping to guide maybe the decisions around people who are going to be serving. And so want to make sure that we have some goals and benchmarks and priorities that we are comfortable with that ensure that this committee is a diverse committee, that is an inclusive committee, that we make sure that we are looking at all the different demographics that we represent, right? The humans that we represent, that people who look like them, and us, people who look like our community, are represented. So I hope that we can enter this and that being our ethos, right? That we want to make sure that the most diverse and inclusive board is going to be the one that represents our community. So I hope that we can be thinking in that way as we are talking about folks. But also wanted to sort of pass the ball over to Bill for a minute, when we're talking about the goals and the benchmarks and the priorities, some things that we can just like pay attention to, making sure that we know the sort of the percentage of diversity and inclusivity that we have currently, and making sure that we only get better and not get worse. So Bill, if you would like to jump in for a minute, and talk about some of that, and just like some of the places where we're not doing so great.
Sure. Things, I guess. So if we achieved a certain measure of equity, I guess a minimum level of equity on our planning council, 28% or so would of the persons would be African American, because that's what the percentage of the population is generally in Nashville-Davidson County. And there also is another 3% or so of people who are more than one race. So if we were to look at, say, 30% people of color as a minimum kind of standard that we would move toward with this slate. I don't know where we're at right now, if it's how achievable it is. I'm sure it is, but that anything we do would move us in terms of demographics, would move us closer to that baseline of equity of 28%, 30%. Of course, this doesn't factor in Latinx folk, because they're, that, as the Census Bureau calls it, Hispanic is not a race. So we need to consider that. So we might, again, adjust that number up. But I think it would, I would certainly be for us setting a goal and adhering to the goal, holding ourselves accountable to do something like that. And it doesn't need to, certainly, I fumblingly described it, but so that's one thought. The other is, I think that anyone that we ultimately agree to invite needs to commit to undergoing EI training, and I don't know how extensive that would be. We're talking about like the Crossroads 1-day training or 2.5-day training. They're very different. Of course, this begs the question raises the question of the entire COC and its membership and training for all of us, and what we're going to require, recommend, etc. But
Bill, do you know? I know that they've been doing that class at the Center for Nonprofit Management. I know that we could even hire someone to do that class, maybe for the entire board. Do you know sort of what that costs per person? I mean, I can look it up. I just didn't know if you knew exactly what.
I don't offhand. The Crossroads people require that you come as a cohort. You can't sign up as an individual. So I think the last training that if you're going to register, you had to register 4 people. You didn't really have to be a cohort. It could be unrelated people who don't necessarily work together, but just want the training. But they, for some reason, they want you to register in these small groups, and I don't know the rationale behind that. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I will commit to doing some research on like what that might look like if we decide to do that going forward. It might be something, Bill, that we need to, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea for our entire board, not just for this committee or for new people. So I'll talk to either Terry Hughes at CNM or one of my friends who does the training and just say like, is that something that we could do a retreat on for our committee? Or like, is there, I know there's not, this is almost silly to say, but like, is there a 1 hour thing that we could do that would be better than a 0 hour thing? Like what, what sort of are our options? But I think that's fantastic. Could we put that in the minutes just as something that we will, for that particular one, not the 30% piece, but the committing to undergoing the equity inclusivity training? Can we vote on that after we get a little bit more information, maybe at our next meeting, which we can also, that we will also be talking about? Is that okay with everyone?
I think that's great. And we did Nashville Care Show training with Crossroads in October. We did the 2-day. So
Okay.
I can connect you with some of our staff to, as around cost and how much we did. It was 100 people. So it was a lot of folks, but.
Perfect. Thank you, Jess.
That's in the
Does that
notes.
sound with everyone else? I just don't think that we can make a good decision right now without knowing all the information, but we will be meeting a little more regularly. And I think that that would be something that we definitely could like request. Thanks, Bill, for that. What can somebody tell me, Susie, what is our total membership? Or Abigail, do you happen to know what our total? I don't mean our total of our committee or of the council, of the planning council.
25.
25. Okay, somebody better than me. What is 30% of that?
It's about 8.33.
Just a little above 8.
Okay, I just want to make sure so that when we're trying to think about getting to a 30% or more, that would mean around 8 or 9 people that we need to make sure we have 8 or 9 people of color or Latinx people to make up the planning council. And currently, well, it doesn't really matter because we're about to have fruit basket turnover, so we'll have to. That's another thing. Bill, one of the things that is a little concerning, not concerning, but like, I think that we definitely can try to get to that place. But the thing is, like, we can nominate folks from a broad diversity, like who gets elected is a whole nother thing, right?
Right. Yeah, and I meant to say something about this because I sort of presented that number and it came across probably in a kind of quota-y sort of way. I think we need to refine our messaging and how we invite and welcome and engage people, so that they understanding where we're coming from and seeing that what we're seeking to achieve is something that they would like to be a part of. I think that maybe starts with analogous to our inclusion of people with lived expertise, as Bobby Watts says. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. That's nice.
That we are seeking the lived expertise of Black and brown people, but many of us don't know anything about what it's like to live in a Black and brown body, and because of that, we are deficient. We're lacking something rich and essential. And if we can communicate that to folks that we nominate, then perhaps we stand a better chance of persuading them to join us and lead us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that. Seeking the expertise. Yep, I love it. Well, and we've been talking a lot too about, well, I say we, some people, probably Susie and I, just about even the people that we ask. I mean, like I asked Dawn Diener last year, right, if she would join this, and then 3 months in, she was like, Ingrid, why am I doing this? And then now we're in the situation where she is a huge asset to what we are pushing for. And so, and part of what I was sharing with Dawn is like, yeah, it may be boring for you, 6 meetings. Hopefully, though, your engagement and like we need your expertise. We need your expertise. You may not need us at all, right? But like the folks that we advocate with and that are being represented on this through this board need the expertise of the people that are being invited around the board. And it's not, it may not be like, you know, a barrel full of monkeys, but it's going to be, sorry, my mom used to say that as a party, right? It's not going to be that game. Anyway. But we need to remind people that we need them, right? We need you. We need your expertise. Okay. So if you look at, hopefully you can sort of see my screen and you can see the agenda here. The next piece that well, first of all, I just want to hear back from everybody. I'll put myself on mute and I just want to hear back from others how you feel about what Bill said, and if you have other suggestions to make sure moving forward that we are as inclusive and that we are moving forward in an equitable way, that we do learn from our friends who have different expertise than we do.
When one quick thing, this is Bill, on messaging that I forgot to mention as well is to communicate our commitment to making it a safe and equitable space where people feel like they can raise their voices and they'll genuinely be heard, is part of, I think, what we're doing as well. But I'm going to shut up too.
Jessica, and I completely agree with everything that's been said. I would be very interested in figuring out how we can address the challenges of the fact that we can present a diverse slate and a representative slate, and then what happens after that, we don't have as much control over, at least it feels like we don't, and what are best practice ways to address that? And I don't know the answer to that at all. And I think the messaging and the way we talk to the general membership about it and about their responsibilities and all of that is very important, but I don't know. I don't know how we ensure that. And it's important, very important that it is a diverse body and representative of everybody's experience, and that everyone has a place that they're heard, and that they're exactly, I'm not sure which one said it around, we need that. And that's important.
I can look into something like that if I can send along to this listserv of the COC contacts across the country to see how they do that and how they assure inclusivity on their governing board. That has to be engineerable somehow, I think. And I also think that we can, I think we just leave it up to the Racial Equity Committee members, and they haven't had a chance to meet, as I understand, but to begin to inject language in the beginning of each of our committee meetings and at the beginning of the Planning Council meetings that has some of that equity and inclusivity sort of emphasized. So we hear it every time there is a gathering of that's related to the continuum of care.
Anybody else for suggestions? Susie, that's really helpful. And y'all, for any of these questions or things that we come up against or barriers, challenges, whatever you want to call them. Susie has been listening in to a lot of national COC phone calls, and has just been getting a wealth of resources from other groups that are, you know, having challenges the same way we're having challenges right now. So that's been helpful for me as we've been going through this process. You know, Susie will say, well, in California, they're doing this because that's what they just said the other day on this phone call. So that's been really helpful. If you come up against any barriers or challenges that you can't really feel your way through, talk to Susie. She's been really helpful and a good resource. So is it okay if we move on to the next piece of the agenda?
Does April have anything to say?
I think so. So I've brought up the next piece on my, can y'all see this on your screen? Is it helpful at all? Just the basics, the role of the planning council, you know, going back over those, that it's a 3-term commitment, 80% meeting attendance requirement, and to participate in one working committee. The vacancies that we have currently to be filled are 5 that are elected by the COC general membership and 3 who are appointed by the mayor. So 3 of those 8 people need to be people who have lived experience. Susie, is that number inclusive of Ashley staying on? Ashley Oswald staying on?
She stays on in the seat that didn't need to be filled, is what I remember. So the 3 would be in addition to Ashley and Tim.
Is Tim not? Why do I think Tim is rolling off?
Oh, yes, he was one of the ones going off.
Ashley has lived experience, if I remember correctly, right?
She does, yeah. And she hasn't been able to come, but it's been because of COVID and job stuff. And so she has made a commitment that she will come after all this sort of calms down a little bit. And it's really, I mean, I think her voice is really important as a young person with lived experience. I like that too, live expertise. So
we have on the planning council, we have Wendell, we have Tim. Again, Tim is rolling off and can be elected. We had Trina, but she has decided not to continue. So that's
3, and then Teresa Skiles and Ashley Oswald.
Yeah, and then Teresa is also asking to go off. Is she not, Abigail?
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I remember. So Teresa and Tim, and is Wendell rolling off?
No.
Okay, so that means we only need 2 people. Oh no, that's right, 3.
I think we need the 3.
Okay, great.
Teresa's going off. Trina's going off, and but I think it is 3. I think what Judy was saying is the 3 and the 5, the 5 that get elected by the Continuum of Care general membership, and then the 3 by the mayor. I think the last time the way that worked is the mayor appointed 2 of his 3 with lived experience. But Judy was wondering if the lived experience emphasis could come more from the COC membership, and then that gives the mayor opportunity to kind of put the squeeze on some folks who the COC really won't have that much influence with, like, for example, businesses or something like that. So it could be that of the 3 that need to have lived experience, we could ask on the ballot for the Continuum of Care membership that there must be 2 votes for people with lived experience of the total 5, and the other 3 do not have to have lived experience. The 3rd person who has to have lived experience can be one of the 3 that the mayor appoints. Does that make any sense?
Yep. Okay, perfect. So great. Some of the questions that so that's 8 people, right, that need to be elected. Some of the things that we've done before this meeting were ask if the executive committee will continue, because having them for just 1 year feels really not helpful. And so they all said yes.
Yeah.
Ashley Oswald will remain on. Michelle Hall was sort of thinking about leaving for Oasis as an Oasis sort of representative for young people. She's decided that she'll complete her term, which is great. Has Ryan Ellis gotten back to you, Susie?
He has
didn't
not.
get back to me either.
Okay.
So I can keep trying, if we both maybe keep trying to reach out to him.
Yeah. Because if he can get back to us, just so you guys know, we were looking at his attendance record, and it wasn't the 75% that's required. And the last thing I think that we need is on the board is, I mean, he's a great asset if he would attend, but with that attendance, and we kind of need to keep people's feet to the fire on this for so that they realize what their attendance is looking like. But he can be an ally whether he's on the planning council or not, and it seems to me like that seat could be filled. And I think the nominating committee could state that if Ryan does get back and said that's fine, I do need to resign voluntarily, the only way to push him involuntarily is to have Metro Council end up being that body that does that. It's like, what?
So weird.
I think, and if that's spelled into the charter, then I guess or into the ordinance, for example, then I guess that's solid steel. But if it's not, and it's only in the charter, it would be good to see if we can. That will be among several changes that should be considered. So, but if we can get to him and he steps down, then we'll go from 8 to 9 members that can be elected.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple questions? You guys mentioned the executive committee continuing on by charter. Is that something that can happen? Like, do they have to be reelected? Do they have any of that, or? Their terms are 1 year. That's another thing that ought to change for institutional memory. I mean, you have leadership for 1 year and then they can keep flipping. And I think that they can be reelected for 3 consecutive terms, but I need to look, at least 2. But yeah, it's a year's worth of commitment, and then if there's a reelection for them.
But we definitely need to talk to the charter committee about trying to make those for longer than 1 term, just because that is painful, right? I mean, I've talked to other directors that have other boards. Like I talked to Mel with the Human Relations Commission, and I talked to a couple other people that have commissions or boards, and they said that they have a 2-year commitment for their executives so that they can, again, institutional memory, etc.
Yeah, I've added that. I have a long list of charter changes that could be suggested, and both of those things are on there.
So along that line, we as a membership committee can recommend them to our slate, but nothing that would guarantee that they would actually be voted to continue, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be elected as the executives, right? Is that right, Susie?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that got at the gist of it. So we're wanting to see if all the executive committee minus Ryan wants to be on the slate again. We think it is good for them to be on the slate again, but just because they're on the slate doesn't guarantee they stay as the executive body.
Correct.
And that would have to be another election at the planning council, first meeting of the new planning council, right?
Yeah. So they would get elected back to the body, and then the planning council would elect them as the.
They don't have to be reelected because all of them, I think, are still on, right?
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, that clarifies that. Okay, so we don't put them on.
I think all 3 of those folks were not up for reelection, but if say they were, I'd have to look at the charter to see. But I mean, it's not like this. The COC elects the chair and the co-chairs, or the co-chair and the secretary, vice chair and secretary. It's the planning council body itself that does that election after the nominees have been selected.
Susie, I think I am up for re-election, so.
Are you?
You are. Oh yeah, you are. But but Mark is not and Paula is not. But you are.
So that means Mark and Paula will not be on the ballot, but April will.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down here.
And if we, if we decide that we, if it's like we definitely want to make sure April remains the secretary because she is super amazing, obviously, and who else could fill that spot? We could say she could be one of the people that the mayor appoints, right? I mean, that could be one of the ways that it goes. It still doesn't mean she would end up secretary, but she could be, since she's rolling off, she could be one of the people the mayor appoints.
I have to lobby the mayor for that, or
Hell no.
So, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, last year we had some significant conversations amongst this committee around our ability to recommend to the mayor who they would appoint, and if we would just recommend people who the COC body didn't vote for, like, is that,
yeah, we can still do that. The mayor has said that he is willing to take suggestions.
to the county commission?
Huh?
Nothing.
Yeah, to Metro? No, just kidding. Yeah, he has said that he would he would appreciate, in fact, recommendations. So if we do that after the election, that could be one of the ways that we ensure that we keep a very representative board, right? We could say, all of these crackers just, voted a full-on white planning council. I need you to appoint these 3 people.
Ingrid, find different
8
words.
people. What?
Hopefully you'll use different words.
Maybe, if he's lucky. But, I just think that like it is a way that we could help keep that balance if people, really. Hillary throwing up. It hurts me to not be able to see her face right now.
Sorry, I had a phone call and I wanted to just turn it off, but I couldn't figure out how to do that.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to.
I wonder, I can't help wondering, this is perhaps uncharitable of me, but given the mayor's lack of interest in input in so many other areas, is it just because he doesn't want to fool with us that we can suggest people so he doesn't have to worry about it?
No, I think that he literally knows nothing about what we do. And so he doesn't know who to suggest. Like he would suggest people that he thinks are nice or like, like to give food to poor people or whatever. And it's like, no, that is not what we need. We need people who know what the heck they're talking about.
Does he know we exist?
He does now.
He does.
He definitely knows we exist, so that is a positive. I don't know if he knew a week ago, but he knows now, so that's great. Okay, let's go. So now we sort of know, who's rolling off and who's rolling on, or not, we don't know who's rolling on, but who's rolling off.
On the Ryan Ellis component, I can also try to reach him if you guys have tried and not had any luck. I know Paula spoke to him yesterday. So I can gauge what that interest is.
Why don't I send you the related email, Jessica?
Okay.
And he's just, I imagine he's busy and it's not on the top of his, priority list. But if he's open to voluntarily resigning, that would be the easiest way for it all to be handled.
Ready. Yeah. Okay.
Or if he just wants to start showing up, like honestly, right? Because it's not that he's a terrible person. He's a lovely human. He doesn't contribute when he's there and he doesn't show up. So it's kind of like.
Well, and if I remember correctly, I mean, he represented a older adult aging population that was really important to make sure there was representation of which was how he ended up there to begin with. So we don't,
it is.
if we lose him, we've got to keep that in mind, that was part of why he was there to begin with.
Absolutely. So I don't know if we should go through these because you can see them here on the list. I will say that number 2, I have not heard back from Laura Berland yet. I do know that she has in the past not felt comfortable just because her organization is a statewide organization and her board did not want her to only sort of represent Nashville, right? Like, as we all know, nobody loves us. So, you know, being on a board in Nashville is not probably state board's favorite things. But so that's what Laura, have you heard anything as of now, Abigail, from Talisha?
No, I haven't. Do you want me to reach out to her again?
Yeah, or I could try to, I mean, you copied me on the email. I could say like, hey, we'd really love to have you or something. I could follow back up.
Yeah, that might be good.
I think the job and employment focus would be a real feather in our cap for, at least for the HUD visual. Do you know her, Abigail? Have you seen her?
Alicia?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I've
know
worked
she-
with her.
You know if she is white or black, because again, if she is a person of color, that would be another strong point. I don't know. I don't think I've met her.
She is a person of color. And I've worked with her on the employment work group that we have going on. So
Cool. Yeah.
she also sits on the workforce board for the Middle Tennessee region.
Oh my gosh, it would be
That would be
so
great.
helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Roy Batista was a yes from Judy. And do we know, does Roy own Fairfield Inn and Suites, that particular one, or is he like the manager?
He's like the food and beverage manager. So he's not top dog, but he expressed interest to Judy and sent his brief bio and seems very, very interested, has had personal experience with people who are experiencing homelessness and has a real heart for it, but he's not the GM there or anything like that.
Okay, that's awesome. That's exciting when people reach out. It just usually means they have a lot of energy for it. Reached out. Randy Morgan had come to. Judy had invited him to some of the initial How's Nashville stuff that we did. His office used to be on Church Street, and he saw a man get hit and killed by a car right in front of his office. And who he had befriended because the guy hung out on the bench in front of his office a lot, and it just really changed him. And he reached out to Judy. He goes to Belmont United Methodist. He ended up being our board chair, and now he's the contractor that's building the village. So I reached out to him just to someone who is he's a contractor, he's a business person, he's had an office on Church Street. He reached out to Judy. He's very invested in housing for people experiencing homelessness, which his voice around housing is, I just feel like it's pretty, I don't know, as we were talking about people and housing and who brings the best sort of experience, you know, there's a lot of people that are contractors or developers, but not all of them know about low income housing or subsidies and understand the ins and outs of those kind of things. But Randy really does and has a heart for that. So anyway, that's him. Pam Carter is not available. She is confidentially struggling with some health issues right now. So she is a no. I have written, let's see, her name is not Stephanie. That's what I thought it was when we. Talked. I sent her an email. her name is Lindsay Sarate is what her name is. So, and she works with Alliance Bernstein. I sent her an email, haven't heard back. Will see.
Oh.
But she's a business person who is passionate about our folks. Blake Owen, a developer, I think friend of maybe Paula's. Is that right? Paula and Jess's. Do you know anything? Can you tell us anything about him, Jess? I will tell you that Randy Morgan is not a person of color, and neither is Stephanie, although she is from the North, which kind of counts. I'm just kidding.
Her name was Lindsay.
Yeah, sorry, Lindsay. I was reading it. I don't mean it counts as a person of color. I mean it counts as diversity.
Blake does not bring diversity.
New Jersey.
Yeah, she's from like New Jersey or something. So I'm like, okay. Do you know anything about his like passions or interests? Does he have a commitment to?
Yeah, he definitely has a commitment. He does not bring any diversity to the table. Has a commitment for service and has a commitment to a homeless community and in personal justice, personal service kinds of ways. Trying to think back on his statement he wrote last year, and it was really good for someone like but I don't think he has a history of being actively involved. So, which I think last year was kind of to his detriment, as he has not ever been involved before, but last year would have liked to have been involved. I don't know where he's at this year.
I emailed him and 2 others, and Imhoff from police said no. Blake did not get back. But I know Paula's got, Paula could connect with him and would probably hear back from him because they know.
Yes, we could definitely see if he is still interested. I think if we had a business representative that brought more diversity, that would be better. I'm looking for the folks I know on this list. It looks like a very white list. Maybe everyone who I don't know is of color and brings diversity in some form or fashion.
Pam would bring some diversity. Stephanie would not. Randy does not. What about Roy?
Well, you said Pam was not interested.
Right.
Yeah, she's not. I was just letting you know. I wasn't just throwing all. I wasn't just throwing all the white girls out there like I know.
How encompassing definition of business?
What?
Our definition of our the category business, because because they're nonprofits are businesses as well. And I was wondering about, do you all know I don't know him personally, but Travis Claybrooks he's the CEO of the Rafa Institute. It's a restorative justice initiative for people 18 and under that come in contact with the court system. And he's a black man, and recently went through Leadership Nashville, and
Cool. What is his name?
His name is Travis Claybrooks, and he's young. He's young and a CEO, and pretty. His I've read about his program. It seems pretty visionary.
Tell me the name of it again, Bill.
The Rafa Institute, and I think it's spelled Raphaph. It's a Hebrew word from the Hebrew scriptures.
The other person that I thought of in terms of for someone in from a racial equity lens is, and I don't know, and I'm sure a lot of feelings around this, but what about Ashford Hughes? He's teaching diversity and inclusion courses with Mel Fowler Green right now. And he's not in the mayor's office, but he has been in the mayor's office. So that might bring some help in terms of like figuring out how to wiggle through. I don't know if he would be interested in serving or not, but it's somebody that I thought about after we talked yesterday.
I think he'd be terrific. Ingrid, I was also going to suggest into that racial equity category. Do you all know Dr. Teresa Smallwood? She directs the.
Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah, she's, I want to be her when I grow up too.
Me too.
She
Oh my
directs
God, she's such a good idea.
the Institute of Public Theology and Racial Justice at the Divinity School at Vanderbilt. She also is my fellow church member, and she's got a PhD, a JD. She's ordained, and she's out, and she's black.
She is a badass. That's all I'm
She is-
saying. I love her. Yes.
She is.
She's not gonna be a shrinking violet either. She's gonna
Oh,
say
no.
like, this is ridiculous. We need to get it taken care of.
She sounds like she'd be desired by a number of nonprofits or entities like this one to be on their board. But
Yeah, she's
are
a
you willing to
badass.
reach out to her, Bill?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, tell her I said that I'm leaning too. Say Ingrid is also leaning on you.
Okay.
Hey, Ingrid, tell me the name of the person that you just mentioned, though.
Ashford Hughes. I put him on the
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
On this list that I'm. Bill, is there anyone else that you can think of that might be a good person? Or is Ashford doing his own thing these days?
I thought he was
Is he
starting a
working?
nonprofit.
Okay, maybe so.
It was something
I
he
don't
was
know.
wanting to get going when he was in the mayor's office, and
I think he is. When I talked to him,
My Brother's Keeper, I think it's called.
okay. Okay, those are really, really good ideas. Does anybody have
one
any?
more.
Sorry,
There was
anybody
one
else?
more that Bill had, I don't know, the Rafa Institute.
Yep, Travis Claybrooks. I'll put that on there too. Great. Is that how you spell it, Bill?
I think so. I did try to do a search, and I didn't do very well on my phone.
Then we've got, does anybody else have suggestions for business? Or, so I'm going to take, can I take Pam's name off of here?
Yeah.
Great.
Do we have any representation of downtown business owners?
Well, Randy his business isn't downtown anymore, but he was there. He was like literally almost at Church Street in Downs. He was in that building, in that, whatever that building is, right across from the library and to the left a little. And that's how he fell in love with our folks, is that folks were hanging out down there, and he just started talking to folks.
Tom Turner's on, and Tom Turner, works with a lot of the downtown businesses. He doesn't own one, but
He also doesn't talk at any of our meetings.
It's true.
I think that's just when we're thinking of business, could just be something to keep in mind when we're looking to recruit business folks, is people who are downtown. That could be narrowly focused of me, but feels like that could be something just to be mindful of.
Mhm.
Yep. People from nonprofits. This woman, April Calvin, we asked her if she wanted to serve again, and she said yes. I mean, what do y'all think? I'm just kidding. I'm so excited. And then me, I would love to serve again if that happens, but who knows if it will or not. I feel excited about what's going on, and I feel like I have a little more flexibility these days. Kay Bowers said yes. Praise the Lord. Do y'all know Kay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm excited. She's another person that really knows the ins and outs of what it takes to do affordable housing, and I think that's really important for us to remember, because I think a lot of times we forget about housing. We just think we're trying to shelter folks, and that's crazy.
She just retired, so she's got more time than she did.
She does.
She'll definitely she'll talk in the meetings.
Yes, she will. And she's on for those of you who don't know, she's now on the MDHA board.
MDHA board, yeah.
Which is really helpful as well. And she's doing some work for Eddie Latimer at Affordable Housing Resources right now. So
she's still going to facilitate for the next 90 days. She's contracting with Eddie, and she's working to try and facilitate the knowledge sort of transfer, and sharing about the CARES Act funds and as it relates to rental assistance and the eviction moratoria and that kind of stuff. So she's going to be looking at that for the next 3 months. And so that's all good stuff.
She went to Florida this week so that she could come back and work more. I was like, good for you. Okay, and then, oh yeah, go ahead, Jess.
I was saying, when we're speaking of Eddie, and I don't know why he necessarily totally made me think of this, but do we have any nonprofit housing provider representatives we would want to look at considering, like anybody from Woodbine Community Organization or Urban Housing?
I think, Jessica, I think that Kay could kind of qualify as that since she just hired from running a CDC, New Level Community Development Corporation. And so she's
in the loop. She could answer any question. She could run circles around anybody who's in that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what about Ashley Bum? Did she nominate herself, or was she a suggestion, or what is her name doing there?
I lost track of that. I didn't have anybody's name by her to approach her, so I don't know why that was in the mix.
I mean, I love Ashley, but if we're looking for a little bit more diversity or a diversity of a different sort, I was going to suggest Sean Foster at the YW. He was.
Is it SEAN?
Yes, S8. Yeah. I never said it right, but it's no, it's SHAN.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a basketball star when he was at Vanderbilt, and he's working with the the anti-violence campaign of the IW and the anti-racism work.
He's awesome.
He's black.
Yeah,
They are
awesome,
just so you know why that would be additionally great for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons is when they talk about the racial equity lens that we should be looking through. The HUD folks are constantly, when they're asked, well, what representation would that mean on a governance board, and they mention the YWCA almost all the time. And what Abby was saying, she used to work there. That the Y has been constantly for years and years interested in that topic, and showing that we could get someone from the Y. Pam used to be there, but she's at Renewal House now, so she could represent A and D as well, but she said no. But yeah,
I really like Sean, and he's so involved. Okay, I'm really thankful that Beth Shin said yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really thankful that Dawn Diener said yes. And if we had done this a month and a half ago, she would have said no, by the way. So I'm really glad. Tim Leith, he is not.
I emailed him for the second time today. I haven't heard from him from the first one. He did not respond, and we'll see if he responds to the second one. I really don't know what his access to email is these days, now that the library's been closed for so long. So,
I mean, he has a smartphone.
He doesn't give us a number to.
Right. But he can still check his email. Okay, Sheila Decker, who was nominated by the Consumer Advisory Board, and Dion checked with her and she said yes, she would be interested. I have reached out to Kateri Fox and not been able to find her. So if anybody else knows her or has any BFFs at Poverty in the Arts, they might be able to reach out. She's super amazing. We worked with her at Open Table Nashville several years ago, and then when she got into housing and became pretty, really stable, she started working at Poverty in the Arts and just killing it. So she's a pretty amazing human. If we could get her to be on. Anybody else that you guys know? I mean, I know we talked about Alex Jackson. I've only only heard like pretty good things. I'm gonna put him back on the list. He's one of the guys that was living in what's that place where they kicked everybody out and we made a big stink about it?
James Robertson.
Yeah, just says which one? No, the biggest one. Fort Negley. He was living at Fort Negley when all of that stuff went down, and really did a lot of, just really got into it on a different level, in terms of organizing and really trying to make things work. So I think maybe somebody from Oasis might be able to. I have no contact for him. I have no idea. But he was suggested twice, and then I said his name, and people were like, yes. So he is a Black man as well. I don't know how to get in touch with those two folks, Kateri and Alex.
I can check in with the Oasis folks. And like, why would it be the Oasis folks? Has he been served there as a younger?
He's a younger dude.
Yeah. Okay. Isn't he the fellow that served on our coordinated entry committee?
He did.
Yeah. Oh, I know Alex. Yeah.
He's pretty rad.
Yeah, he's really great. I didn't know his hyphenated name. But.
It might even be Smith Jackson, but I think it's Jackson Smith. I don't know.
So this.
Sorry, go ahead.
I should have made the suggestion when we were back on health, but I wasn't thinking of it at the time. Do we want, or do we know anybody that is affiliated with Meharry that could be a good representative for Planning Council?
Well, Mark is
Mark's their attorney.
His legal counsel. Mark Overlock is their legal counsel, and he's our vice president.
Okay, but do we want to look at anybody else that might be not quite as administrative?
Not quite as white? I mean, what?
Well, no, I'm not familiar with everyone who's on the committee now, so sometimes my questions, I don't know what people's affiliations are. More looking, is there anybody who might have a more grassroots approach in any of the Meharry system that's just closer to the ground? That might be, someone who works in a clinic or in some of their research components, or, and I don't know anybody. It's just thinking through places that you might have someone who can bring a lot to the table. And have
I
some
don't know
connections.
anybody. Sorry.
I think Mark's strength at seeing him work really hard on the Charter Revision Committee is being interested in that, first of all, and then being able to sort of parlay the language in a really sort of formal, effective manner. His wife, is with Loaves and Fishes and has been for eons, so he has that connection. So he's not like healthcare on the ground, but I think his legal expertise, I find that is a really nice asset to have in the group.
I don't think Jessica's saying in lieu of.
What's that?
Jessica, were you saying in lieu of or replacing Mark?
No. I was saying just in addition.
Okay.
Yeah, not in looking at replacing it all. When I made that statement, I didn't know Mark was. I forgot that he was part of their administration. I was just looking for more diversity from a health perspective, and Meharry does so much from a community perspective that I think not just thinking of them as health, but just that there could be someone there.
I only know, I know this is nerdy to say, I only know Dr. Hildreth at Meharry.
So I worked with a guy named Tariq Smith, I think is his last name. It's been a couple years ago. We worked on a health equity committee together. And he was right underneath, like he reported to Hildreth, but he did a lot of health equity and racial justice, social determinants of health work.
What is his name? Say his first name again.
Yeah, Tariq. Do you remember?
Great, Jessica. Yes, very much. Very impressive fellow, and wise, and a lot of. Yep.
Yeah,
like
you and I were on the committee.
TAR.
I'll see if I can find his email so I can spell
I think it's IQ, but.
Yeah.
Another person in health that I'll know, Sarah Bounce. She is now she's doing something with the Vanderbilt Meharry Alliance around equity and justice, an initiative, and she's young. I don't know what her ethnicity or race is, but she's very, very good.
And you're saying she's at Meharry too, Bill?
The Meharry Vanderbilt Alliance.
Okay.
She actually is on the equity tip. She actually does trainings as a side light. She's thoroughly trained in that as well.
And Sarah, I'm sorry, Bill, say where she is again.
The Meharry Vanderbilt Alliance.
Oh, she's at Meharry too.
And it's Sarah, just to be picky. But it's
Yeah,
spelled.
no. Yeah, does she spell it? I have a friend who says her name's Sarah too, and she spells it Sarah, but so is it just Sara?
I think so. I'm looking her up.
Cool,
This is a
cool.
great list. This is a great list to have. I mean, even if they don't get elected, I mean, if they don't say they're interested in that, they can still be approached next year. But fleshing these kind of the interest in these folks out this is a really rich list to kind of pluck from.
Thank you, Jessica, for saying Tariq. And is it, if that's not how you spell his name, just like whatever, tell me. I hate trying to guess, but I also
I'm trying to get through my email to find an email from him that has it. That's
okay.
So when I find it, I'll.
Okay, so then we have okay, here's another situation, and that's the veterans. And so currently, suggestions have been Aaron Solansky. Is that how you say that?
Solanskis. She's not. I've emailed her twice, and she's not replying. So.
Sean Muldoon is who John Princeton nominated to serve in his place. Is Glenn Funk is he that?
No.
Oh, that's separate. Okay.
Yep.
Does anybody have any other veteran considerations? Because that feels like I mean, I love Sean, but he's been with us for 18 years. Like, is there any diversity or like any? Don't tell him I said that.
Ageism now, ageism.
It's not ageism. I've been around for 18 years too, but he's only what?
Sean has you beat on the 18 years. I mean, he worked with him 20. I mean, let's just put honesty here. At least 30.
Yeah, exactly. So are there other?
There is, and I don't have a name of a person, but there used to be a group that worked, there was VA employees who were really affiliated with some organizational meetings that were happening at Woodbine a couple years ago. Like they did homeless outreach, but they were doing it for the VA. And that Tiffany Jones used to work there. She doesn't anymore, and it's probably been more than 2 years.
Well, Jaha Martin.
Yeah,
Jaha.
Jaha.
The VA.
Yes, she was part of this. Yes.
And then there's another lady whose last name is Jackson, and I can't remember her first name. I know this is a public meeting. She was not very nice to work with. I'll just say when we were in not Jaha, I adore Jaha.
Oh, Jaha's great. She's real easy to work with.
Jaha is who I'm thinking of. That's exactly who I was thinking of.
Okay, I'm sorry, somebody's at my door, but I'll text her right now and just see if it's something that she would be willing to do. Thank you. Hackjes. But I can text Jaha right now. She also used to be on our board. And she sensitive, just so you know, y'all watch out, we might convert you.
She really contributed a lot to the point in time count committee.
Oh my gosh, so much. She's so good. Okay, I've asked her if she'd be willing to be nominated. Okay, anybody else that you guys want to, any other veterans or people to represent veterans? They don't have to be veterans, but somebody working in a veteran situation. Okay. Did you say take Glenn Funk off for any reason?
That's just my question, and I don't think anybody was really assigned to ask him. The other, there are a whole lot of factions and representation that HUD would look for on a governing board, and you can't satisfy all the check boxes, but they do look for the justice system. And so if someone from the sheriff's office or the DA's office or something like that would be, advantageous. But
yeah, what also about Jay Sorbet?
Yeah.
UBF. I thought I was gonna have to box his ears the other day, but April, it's gonna be okay.
He has a big heart.
He also called our people weapons, and I thought I was gonna have to punch him, but it's fine.
My.
His language could use a little training.
Yeah.
So also, Jaha Martin just said hello. Yes. Okay, so I'm putting her on the list.
Amen. All right.
Would anybody do we have anyone represented from the public defender's office?
well, sort of. I mean, isn't
Dawn.
Is Dawn still? Okay, I couldn't remember. She
used to be.
She used to be, yeah.
So she has that knowledge. She doesn't, and I'm sure she has contacts and context, but she's moved on.
Yeah, but she does definitely have, and she still has a lot of good connections there. I mean, like when Hank was arrested, she made sure that the public defender that was going to be serving him was like on top of everything and had all the support she needed, which was great.
That's great.
Anybody else? I mean, we don't really have anybody from, we don't have anybody from law enforcement or, oh God, everybody's sending me.
It's from law enforcement, but I don't know if he was reached out to. He's under the asterisks down there.
He said no.
Oh.
Yep. He got back and said no. He was interested last year.
Do you know who my most favorite cop is? He is the guy that he's not anymore, but he used to be, I think he used to be on the Homeless Council. Really, he's kind of a tall Black guy with a super, super fantastic smile. Very nice. Who?
Ricky Beard or something? Not that guy?
No.
The one that was
Someone
falling
who's
asleep?
homeless. The one what?
The one that was falling asleep. Remember we talked about him?
Oh yeah, I have an entire video of the guy sleeping. Video. Minutes long. More than 10. Him sleeping at the homeless commission meeting, if anybody wants to see it. No, that dude was terrible.
How about somebody with the community oversight board?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what about Jill? You think she'd do it? You think she has enough time? She's awesome.
Yeah. Could ask.
Yeah. I'll put her in there. Do you want me to?
That's just so in our wheelhouse with criminalization and everything else.
Yes. And let me just say that honestly, and I don't do this all the time, but when Mr. Perfectly got arrested, I called Jill and Mel from the homeless or human relations, and I said, I don't usually ask you guys to do anything, but like this is some shit. Like we need to take action. And they did immediately. They held board meetings and asked questions and started like probing. So I think that she's she's passionate.
What is her last name?
What's Jill's last name? I can look it up.
Is she like the staff of that board? Is she the chair?
She's the director. Yeah.
And she's a cop by training and by experience. She's actually done.
Oh.
I think she's worn every hat there is, from investigator to street beat, etc.
Yeah, she's awesome, and she is on fire, and she does not take no for an answer. I love her.
We won't either.
Yeah, exactly. Jill Fitchard, Fitcheard. I can give you her phone number too. Is 615-880-1800. But we've sort of been. Oh, Lord. Sorry.
I thought you had frozen there for a minute.
Yeah.
No, they've started issuing charges for the protesters on Saturday. My God, it's not good. Felony arrest charges.
Oh.
Can't. All right. I'm gonna put Jill here under Tom Woodard. Why is this so weird?
What did Tom Woodard say, Susie?
He did not respond either.
Okay. Did we want to think about, is there anyone else that we want to think about? Or that sticks out as someone who, would fit well with our group?
Oh, what about Karen Walker from the state?
What does she do?
She is over the 2Gen family grant that we received for Jackson and Chattanooga, because they didn't want to give any money to Nashville. But she is right under Commissioner Barnes. Or maybe Commissioner Barnes. They're both African American females.
Or what about Monica at Parks? I mean, Parks is somebody that we could totally engage because our people are always in the parks.
I think that's I think both of those are good ideas.
I do too.
Monica at Parks may be easily attainable and come to more meetings, whereas state reps may be traveling all over the states. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's Monica's last name?
Sorry, I'm looking it up. Why do I only know people's first names?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Monique?
Yeah, sorry. Monique, not Monica. Dang, so embarrassing. Don't tell anyone that. Yeah, Monique Odom.
Anybody know her?
I'm looking through like who else might be on Parks that would be like a decent. There's a person named Jackie Jones, who's community affairs, although I don't think that that's helpful.
She's amazing, though. She was very active in NOAA, but but because she was with the parks, anyway, she had to kind of be, she couldn't do public things with NOAA, but she did great committee work, and she's got a real just vision for justice. She's a Black woman, about ready to retire, I think. So she might even be able to just be available, but had a lot.
Let's ask. Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Just going to say, had lots of institutional memory and knows how things work in that department intimately.
I would say both. Yeah, I would say Jackie Jones and Monique Odom if Jackie Jones can't.
I know I'm not on the committee, but another police officer option, and I had to look her up because I couldn't remember her name, is Nakia Reed. She's the LGBTQ liaison officer for the police. She met with Hannah and I once and she went to the YAB meeting to meet with them. She seems really cool, but I haven't had a ton of experience with her, but from the experience I've had, I really enjoyed working with her.
Tell me her name again.
Tell me what her role was.
Her name is Nakia Reed, and she's the LGBTQ liaison officer for the police department.
Okay.
She's awesome. Sorry, I had to step away. I have a summer camp happening at my house, so I had to step away for a moment there. I second that. She's great.
I wish that I could think of that guy. Okay, give me 1 second. I will not ask for too much of your time, but let me just do a really quick screen and see if I can find the one cop that I thought was so the one cop that I thought was so awesome. Sorry.
Jessica, remind me, I said earlier before we started going through the list that I was going to send you an email, and now I can't remember what email I was going to send you. Remember?
No, you were going to send me an email. I'll
look over my notes and see if
I don't remember at all. Get back at these.
Okay.
I can give you the phone number for Nakia. Anybody wants it? Also, the person
you were gonna send me the email for Ryan Ellis, like the kind of verbiage you've used.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is Officer Drake, who is the bomb. Do y'all know him? Do you remember him from anything?
What's his name again? Officer Drake?
Yeah, John Drake. He's a chief deputy, and he has a son who, I mean, maybe this is confidential, I don't know, but who is or was homeless. And he's just like, has only been kind. Even in like hot topic times. Even gave me a hug. I liked him a lot. Anybody else? I'm going to take Pam Sessions and David. Is it Imhoff or Imhoff?
Imhoff, yeah.
Is that okay? Just to erase them?
Yep.
Bye.
Now, what we don't have for a number of those newer names are committee members committing to reach the various people?
Well, that's what I was about to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. Good job. So that we can meet back again and have a few more of these. Is anyone interested? I will reach out to Ashford Hughes unless somebody else is interested. Is anyone else interested in doing that? Okay. Bill said that he would reach out to Teresa Smallwood. Is anybody interested in reaching out to Travis Claybrooks from Rafa?
I can.
Who said that?
April.
Thanks, April. Sean Foster. Bill, do you have a good relationship? Who has a good relationship with Sean?
I don't know him personally, but I'm happy to do so. Yeah,
Okay.
I just,
Susie, are you willing to reach out to Oasis about Alex Jackson Smith?
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Jaha Martin said yes.
Okay.
What about Sarah Bounce?
I could do that one.
Okay.
Is she? Oh yeah, at the top. I'm gonna not make her or Tariq green. Is that right?
Right, I can reach out to Tariq, and I sent his email address to Susie, just so that it got filed somewhere. And for some reason, I didn't have an email address for you pop up in my Outlook.
Okay, Tariq is gonna be Jessica. Sarah is gonna be Bill.
Bill, actually with a K.
Bill, if she says no, what I'm wondering, can you query the woman who's the trainer, Sarah?
Uh-huh.
And if she says no to service on the planning council, would she be able to kind of gift some of the training to the planning council?
I'll cross that bridge when if we come.
Hurts to ask.
Jess, will you ask Nakia?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Okay, I know. Sorry, summer camp. Nakia, would you mind asking Nakia?
Yeah, I can do that.
Awesome.
Can someone send me contact information?
Yeah, I don't have it, but we'll figure it out.
Oh, if no one has it, I'll find it. I bet Paula has it.
Someone said they had her phone number, I thought.
Yep. Paula will have it too.
And then who wants to talk to Jackie Jones from Parks?
I can call both of the parks.
Okay, thanks, April. And like just sharing with them, I mean, surely they know how often we're in communication with them.
Yes,
April, say hi to Jackie for me, please. Okay.
I sure will.
Awesome, you guys. This seems like a pretty, I feel excited about this list. Particularly knowing that all we need are 8 people and 3 of them are with lived experience. This is a good list.
Where's our list for lived experience? It seems really small.
Yeah.
It is. It's Sheila, Kateri, and Alex.
Okay.
Which is 3 people, and that's what we need. So,
and if Tim leaves, I don't think we can conclude Tim is not interested.
I agree with that.
Because he hasn't gotten back. I think we have to be really careful about that lived experience and who are, during this time in terms of being able to kind of establish contact electronically. So
I think that we should just leave them on the ballot and, you know, maybe we'll come up with more literature or information from him before the vote or during the vote.
Agreed. And I think it's also a good idea not to have everyone in the lived experience category a person of color. So as to not stereotype homelessness.
Absolutely. Also, what?
Sheila Decker's white.
Kateri
Great.
is white, and so is Tim. Alex is not.
Oh, great.
Ingrid, I'm seeing a low battery thing on your screen. I believe it's yours. Just so you know.
Yeah, you have 4%, Ingrid.
I do have 4%.
Mine's about at 10.
The body is about at 4.
Oh my gosh. Okay, perfect. I was trying not to plug in for this meeting, but okay, so everybody has their sort of thing. Now, when do we want to meet again? Susie, can you sort of direct that? You sort of know what our timeline is, and
well, and I think that's what we need to go over. I was trying to kind of I need some help kind of visualizing how the election occurs virtually if the group can't meet. And I can't see that by the time the June continuum of care date comes, general meeting date comes along, even if we can organize a meeting, people will not want to gather at the mission in the numbers. That's just not going to work. So, and then I was thinking, well, then maybe if there was a rush and we got all of these folks interested and put the ballot together, then perhaps it could happen via some sort of a virtual way. But I don't know how that there'd be like, I don't know, there might be 30 members of the COC general membership who have been to 50% or more of the meetings in the last year. But how do they, the ballots are supposed to be generally anonymous. And so how do those agencies then be a roll call, say that they're 8 people? I mean, I don't see how that can work virtually. You got me?
yeah, I have real concerns about I have real concerns about how we're gonna do this virtually for sure.
Can you do an electronic ballot where it's not an anonymous voting, but only certain people get them?
That can happen, and I don't think the charter forbids it. I don't think the charter ever foresaw, COVID for sure.
That's a good guess.
I don't know. I don't think the charter spells out that it has to happen in a real meeting. I don't know.
I do believe it says in person.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. Well, then I think we'll just have to hold, and that gives the committee more time to reach the folks and be a bit more thorough about things. And then maybe by July, things will open up, and perhaps the July meeting could encourage attendance by the voting members and maybe discourage attendance by everybody else, so that you don't have a whole lot of people in that one room at the mission. I don't know.
Is it something that you could ask like one of your buddies about from these COC meetings? How have you guys done voting?
I
mean, everybody's gonna have to do it, right?
Yeah, but some of them may have elections in January and they're done, right?
Maybe we could set up a drive-through kind of thing in the parking lot at the mission.
Yes, I love that.
A drop box.
Yeah, exactly.
There is actually, HUD has its weekly office hours tomorrow at 1:30, and they've got a great chat box that often people will sort of be going back and forth in, and I can ask that and just see what kind of responses come up.
That'd be really helpful.
I'll put that on my list.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think that is a wealth of able to access those folks and see what other people are doing.
Sure is.
Thank God we're not New York City. Okay. Cool. So when do we want to, should we, I mean, can we have like a 30-minute, we don't need to have a 2-hour meeting. I'm not into it, but what about like a 30 or 45-minute meeting next week just to give some updates on these folks and to hear what Susie has as a report back.
We are going to have to give the public notice, days notice. So it would have to be, like next Friday at the earliest, right, Abby?
Well, we would also need to give ITS notice, and they've asked at least 48 hours before the public. I would suggest that next week is already a little too late, and you'd have to put it at the following week.
And on that note, will we need to meet again after that? Or do we think that's going to be the only time we need to meet? Or should we go ahead and public notice 2 or 3 meetings? Just so we have them.
Do you think? Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think you could do that through the month of June, but some of the allowances that allow for the virtual public meetings, it sounds like may end at the end of June. So then we'll have to consider what will be the new process. So I'm trying to get with our attorney on kind of what happens after the month of June. So I think you could go ahead and public notice for the rest of June, but if we could hold
I would
off.
suggest we do that then. I mean, I don't think that, we probably don't need more than 2 meetings if we even need 2, but I would say let's do 2 just so we don't have another 10-day delay.
Yeah.
Good. What happens if we have a meeting scheduled that we don't need to then meet? Can we convene the meeting and then adjourn the meeting within 5 minutes kind of thing?
We just
We can cancel it.
We can cancel it. Okay. Yeah, then I would definitely say let's schedule 2. If we wanted to be on the safe side, let's go ahead and schedule 3 on that component.
That first meeting could occur at the earliest in the week of Monday, June 15th.
Well, can y'all meet that day?
I can.
That would work for me. The 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock time tends to work better for me than anything before noon.
Yep, same.
And
That
this
works
is
for me too.
Monday, the 15th.
Yeah.
If we can make it 2 or later, I've got 1 o'clock.
Good for me.
What about you, April?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
So do you want to do 2:30 if you have a 1 o'clock?
Oh, it'll be over by 2.
Oh, okay, great.
It's a short one.
2.
Love those short ones.
It must be nice.
I know, right? Let's try to do it. Let's try to keep it at not 2 seconds, but let's try to do it in 40 minutes, under 45 minutes.
I don't hear anybody arguing with you.
Great.
Okay, I'll draft an agenda and I'll send it to you, Ingrid. And if it looks good, then we can send it to Abby for posting. What about the second meeting?
Let's just do same time the last Monday in June.
Technically, the last Monday in June is the 29th. You want to make it 2 weeks after the meeting on the 15th? Or Or do you want to make it 1 week after the meeting on the 15th? So that'd be the 22nd.
Just one, yeah, make it for the 22nd. I mean, hopefully we won't need it, but you know, just in case.
Mhm. 2 o'clock on that day too as well?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to cancel it.
You guys free?
And as we talk to folks, we can communicate back to Susie, who can then communicate information back to the group. Is that the right way to do that?
Yeah, that'd be great. And as people say yes, the bio sheets that we kind of got folks to fill out last year seemed to be interesting for the membership to read. So I can then send those, if I get contact information like an email from you all, when you send a yes back, then I can send them that bio sheet and begin to collect that information as well.
Okay, tell me this. Is it terrible if we put their, like, a picture with their bio? I think it's important.
I was wondering the same thing.
I think given that we don't know how we're going to end up being able to vote, like the idea that we don't know whether people are going to be able to come address a crowd and do that, which I think is what we did last year. I think asking for a picture makes sense.
Me too. Yep. I used to hate that because I used to think it was like, pick the pretty people. I don't know, but like, I think it's important for people to see everyone. Be like, we cannot elect a lily white crowd.
Yep, I 100% agree without hesitation.
April, what were you going to say?
Would Ingrid and I need to submit a bio as well?
You're going to write mine and I'll write yours and we'll see what we get.
It'll be a circus.
Let's set a date and say that bios and pictures need to be in by when.
July 1st?
Yeah. Great. Maybe I can lose 10 pounds by then.
Stop.
Or use an old picture, April.
I know. Like all the teenagers.
Yeah, with your cheeks tucked in. Cool. You guys, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for your leadership.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys. It's great to see
really
everybody.
Appreciate you.
All right,
Yeah.
good to see you too.
Bye.
Everybody, do we need to close out the meeting, or do we have to make a motion, or no? It doesn't matter.
I make a motion.
I second.
Thank you.
Bye.